Joining us now is Ken Courtis, chairman at Starford Investment Holdings and former vice chairman at Goldman Sachs Asia. Thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure, Greg. Thank you.
So obviously you were a part of the finance minister, Bill Morneau's advisory council. Any discussions around the table about the importance of pipelines to the Canadian economy? That's what I hear from the business side of it. We need to build them. It's important for the economy.
Well, it is important for the economy. It's important to get the gas and the oil moving again. We can't really export very much at the moment without using, trains that aren't terribly safe. So yeah, pipelines are on the agenda, and it's an important issue to resolve.
But of course, there's a few things to balance out around the cabinet table, because while you might have some interest saying we need to build these pipelines, you have an environmental agenda, which the Prime Minister has been very strong on. So basically you're taking the economics, the environments, and then mixing in the politics. It seems that the Prime Minister has a pretty tough job ahead of him in less than an hour.
And you have other things. You have regional development issues, you have employment issues, you have short-term and mid-term economic growth. So yeah, it's a big decision. And it's a core capital strategic decision for the country. We haven't built a lot of pipelines in the last 10 years. And now's the chance where we're put into a situation where we have to make these decisions, which previous governments didn't have enough courage to take.
Now, it seems an important move, too, in the sense that when we talk about what Finance Minister Bill Morneau was able to come up with out of the sessions that you're involved in, the investment bank, it's about infrastructure, it's about courting international investment, but the Canadian government putting a bit of money in there. I think the ratio was, for every $1 that we could put in, hopefully we could attract $4. We keep hearing from the energy patch that, listen, we don't want Ottawa to put in any money here. We are willing to build these projects. This is going to be private money. This seems, in some ways, at least for them, to be a no-brainer. We want to help build the economy. We don't even want the taxpayers' money.
This is typically the way pipelines have been built in North America, with private money. Other countries have used public money. They see this as an integral part of infrastructure. There's one project, Greg, that's really interesting. It's sort of the northern corridor, to build pipelines across the northern part of the country, where you would have maybe less environmental issues, less population issues, and not just pipelines for gas and oil, but also big transportation networks.
Do you think in that sense they should be switching their strategy a little bit? Because a lot of the controversy has been about Keystone XL going through sensitive ecological areas in the States. We're worried about the rainforests in BC. Is that the untapped opportunity? Get it out through the north?
Get it out through the north is one idea, and also people are working on train lines to take gas and oil to ports in Alaska. So that's one area. Also, we can take oil out through the east, and more fundamentally, we could transform the oil and gas here in Canada and produce higher value-added products and export those. That creates jobs.
That leaves people scratching their heads too, in the sense that we want to get our oil out to the Pacific and we can sell it to the world. We want to get it to the Americans, but we're not refining it ourselves. But if we can get it to the east, as you said, we do have refineries down there. Is that something we should be doing as well, selling finished product to the world?
That's what the east pipeline's all about. It's run into lots of difficulties, as you know, but it's not just refining the oil. We could create a high value-added chemical industry. Now we export the oil, and let's say we get 1 unit of value added for each unit of export. If we transformed it into high value petrochemicals, we could get 20 added units of value. So that creates a lot more jobs, a lot more dynamic, but it takes a strategy and lots of investment to do that.
Lots of investment. I wanted to talk about that in the sense of capital investment in this nation. Is it at the levels where it should be? And if not, how do we get it to come here?
Our levels of capital investment have been going down and down and down relative to other major developed economies for the last 10, 12 years. Gaps opened up. It's not that the companies don't have money. The banks are flush with cash, the companies are flush with cash, but somehow they just aren't putting the cash back into the economy. And we have to look at that and figure out why that's the case and what can be done to change that.
Now, when I hear about these big players being flush with cash, I'm reminded of what Mark Carney had to say all those years ago, dead money just sitting on capital. Is that still what's happening here? People they're just too nervous after what happened in 2007, 8, and 9 to get in a big way?
Actually, 2007, 8, 9 wasn't as dramatic in our country as it was in many other countries. Yeah. And yet in many other countries, capital investment has come back faster. So there's something specific to what's going on in this country. If you talk to CEOs, they say it's too much regulation. They say that everywhere all the time. They say it's the wrong tax structure. I think it's more than that, and we'll have to figure out what that is. I don't think anyone has a clear answer yet, but it drives also productivity, which in this country is also too low.
A lot of people feel like we're running out of time to find those answers. What's the strategy? Who do we need in the room to figure this out for us and get us moving?
Well, we have to, first of all, understand the problem and understand why we're in this situation. Then I think you have to get the key policymakers, the key deciders in government, and we have to get the banks to be more aggressive. They seem to be so risk adverse. You know, the banks in Canada are cashed up to the gills. That steadied them well during the crisis of 07, 8, 9, but they have too much money now that they could be using in more risk investments, so it would create more growth over the midterm.
We keep hearing about all the challenges that the banks are facing every quarter, and then when the earnings finally come out, Scotiabank leading the charge today, beating, $2 billion on the bottom line. Is this a discussion then that the finance minister, Minister Morneau, maybe get the heads of the banks in a room and say, listen guys, loosen up the purse strings, let's get this thing going? I
think there are some people now interested in seeing how we could get more money from the banks into risk capital investments, into second stage development for companies, to help companies go from small startups once they've proved themselves, and to help them sort of lever up so they can get to scale size and compete not only across the country but internationally.